concept of reproductive justice was birthed in 1994 by a caucus of Black feminists in the United States concerned with the mainstream pro-choice movement's individualist approach and myopic focus on abortion. With the reproductive justice framework, this feminist aimed to shift the focus of reproductive justice and sexual health and rights activism away from choice and towards social justice. The reproductive justice framework encourages caution towards the infiltration of neoliberal market logic into reproductive rights organizing, fostering coalition between scholars and activists to oppose the shrinking of state responsibility for health and welfare and state violence towards those deemed unfit to reproduce on the other. Applying an intersectional approach to activism and scholarship, reproductive justice identifies three pillars: the right to have children under the conditions of one choosing, the right not to have children, so access to abortion or birth control, and the right to parent children in a safe and healthy environments free from violence.
I'm a historian of sexual and reproductive health, and I've worked so far mainly on the history of sexual and reproductive health charities in post-war Britain. And that's where I'm starting to look at the race and reproductive justice perspective. So basically, I'm using the reproductive justice framework to better understand why certain charities have undermined minoritized people access to sexual and reproductive health, and how other charities have tried to meet the needs of minoritized individuals.
So I'm really interested in maternity outcomes. In the UK, which is a high-income country, we have very stark divisions between different sections of our population in terms of maternal mortality and morbidity. I'm really interested in understanding more about what leads to those disparities, and also thinking about justice in terms of access to reproductive care.
So I think discussions of trans and non-binary people are really important when we're discussing reproductive justice. And when I think about reproductive justice, I define it quite broadly, just as giving people choices. So the choices to have children, the choices to not have children, and then if they do have children, the choices about how to raise them. And I think the rights of trans and non-binary people have been restricted in the reproductive sphere, certainly legally. I think it's important to remember that there's been a history of compulsory sterilisation for trans people who are seeking legal gender reassignment. And that is something that I think we need to remember when we're discussing the rights of trans and non-binary people today.
I think reproductive justice and social justice are intricately linked. You cannot disentangle the two. But what's so important about reproductive justice is we are talking about the lives of not just one, but two individuals at a critically important time at the beginning of a new human life. And so getting the justice right, both for the mother, but also her newborn baby, is absolutely critical.
I think an interdisciplinary perspective is really important when we're considering the reproductive rights of trans and non-binary people, particularly when we think about stigma as kind of a multi-layered thing. So for instance, thinking about reproductive justice at an institutional level. And for that, we can bring in perspectives from the law and from legal professionals. And then thinking about stigma at a kind of social level. And for that, it's really useful to have perspectives from sociology and social psychology. And then again, thinking about stigma at an individual level, we can turn to psychology more there.
I think Cambridge has always been a sort of a hub for reproductive research. So there have been big research projects carried at the history of HPS or the sociology department, also in history. So I think there is definitely some energy there to look at reproduction. And since also there is like this drive to look at new methodologies and being on the top of the recent debate about sexual and reproductive health, it was sort of like natural that people will integrate reproductive justice perspective and use this very exciting new framework to better understand what's happening around the world and also specifically in Britain.
The contributions to the reproductive justice theme of the summer school reflect the enormous range of interdisciplinary research taking place in Cambridge. Contributions come from history, law, sociology, health service research, and epidemiology. They offer rich historical insights into contemporary debates around reproductive justice and exploration of healthcare inequalities, as well as examples of generating new evidence to improve care for women and pregnant people on the ground here in the UK and low-income settings.